I've been seeing a lot of discourse online about Ariana Grande's body, particularly what seems to be her weight loss. A lot of people sharing concern, some fans saying no, she's simply healthy, some people with eating disorders talking about how it's aspirational or triggering for them. And today I'd like to share from my perspective, not only as a doctor of clinical psychology, but also as a person who had a restrictive eating disorder for a decade, why the discourse I'm seeing is actually extremely dangerous. Let's get into it. Now, of course, I've noticed some people mention the fact that we don't actually know what's going on with Ariana Grande's health. It could be stress or anxiety, it could be a different health issue that's causing her weight loss, or it could be what people suspect it is. I do think we have a tendency to disregard the physical effects of certain health issues when it comes to celebrities. Like sometimes I've seen people accuse celebrities of getting upper blepharoplasties, when I'm like looking at their face and I'm like, this could be aging, or this could be things like taking eye drops for glaucoma, or people accusing people of getting jaw implants, when to me it looks pretty consistent with TMJ disorder, with somebody who grinds their teeth because of stress. There are even people who look like they've had a lot of Botox who, for instance, have Parkinson's disease that paralyzes certain muscles. We are so quick to assume that if it's a celebrity, they've done something to themselves, they've botched themselves somehow, that we do disregard health issues that could come up. Now, on the flip side, I do think celebrities sometimes use health issues as a cover for things like substance abuse problems and eating disorders. Long-term Lyme disease is a huge one that the medical community tends to say that's not a real thing. And I think we'll never really know if any of these are the case for Ariana Grande. But I think people like myself with a history of eating disorders, we have a certain radar for these things because we notice certain subtle things that go beyond just the weight. For instance, anytime you see someone body checking by grabbing their wrist or their limbs, I always clock that because I always remember when I used to do it and what it meant. How you're kind of measuring to see if you've gotten smaller and how comforting it is to feel your bones underneath there. So at the end of the day, I don't know Ariana Grande, I'm not her health provider, I will never know if she does or doesn't have the particular health issue that people are accusing her of having. All I can really say is that when I see her today, I do kind of relate to who I was 5 years ago. But there's a bigger issue here that I'm not seeing talked about much. And that is that if Ariana Grande actually has the disease in question, this type of discourse of people saying, oh my God, she looks so thin, she looks so sick, she's on death's door, is fuel for that disease. You have to understand, telling somebody with this disorder that they are unhealthy or emaciated or frail, or that you're worried for them, is not going to convince them that they look bad and they need to change their ways. It's actually going to make them feel rewarded and going to motivate them to continue restricting. When I had this issue, being told that I look healthy was a major trigger for me, because when I was being told that I looked unhealthy, it meant, oh, you've lost weight. And so if somebody's telling me, you look healthy or you look good, my disordered mind heard that and thought, they think I've gained weight. Well, that's it, I need to start restricting again. And being told that you look unrecognizable or unhealthy or too thin, when you have that disorder, you wear it as a badge of honor. That is a reward. That reinforces the disordered behavior. Eating disorders may start out as initially being about being conventionally attractive, about fitting into certain beauty standards, but they devolve into something a lot more morbid, something that I think a lot of people don't understand. The way I would describe it is it's basically like an addiction to feeling your own bones. Because no matter how many things are going wrong in your life, if you feel your bones so close under your skin, it's like a comfort. It's like anyone could betray me, anyone could leave me, anyone could do whatever to me, but my bones, they are my best friend. The nearness to mortality feels like a comfort when you're in that spot. Like I said, this is morbid. This is really dark. But something that I didn't realize until I was out of it is that I think a lot of people with this disorder actually have an unconscious death wish. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It doesn't get you today or tomorrow, but further down the line it does. And eating disorders are also highly competitive. People with this disease don't just want to be sick. They want to be the sickest person in the room. If they're hospitalized, if they go to inpatient, they wear that as a badge of honor too. They see it as, wow, now I've really made it. Now this shows that I've really gotten sick, that I've really gotten thin enough. And the disease lies to people. It convinces them that they're not sick enough if somebody else is thinner than them, if they don't meet the threshold for being underweight, or if they don't hit a specific number on the scale. And so they're not sick enough to get treatment because other people have it worse. So if they want to truly belong to this club of people who deserve treatment, then they have to get sicker. They have to get worse and worse. And if that means risking their life, then they see it as a type of glory and martyrdom. And that is why you sometimes see friend groups developing eating disorders contagiously, because like I said, they're really competitive. One person starts it, then another person catches on, and then they sort of egg each other on. They fuel each other. And it might seem like they're bonding over it, like they're sharing an experience, sharing tips with each other, but underneath all that, there's a whole lot of envy and competitiveness. And you know what's so interesting about having like a specific number in mind? Like what's sometimes called a safe number. Like, oh, if I reach this specific number on the scale, then I'll feel okay and I'll be able to stop restricting. Of course, it always goes down and down and down. You get to that weight and it's never enough. But in addition to that, it's always so arbitrary. And something that I'm realizing now, a few months ago I moved to a country in Europe. And now that I'm pregnant, now that I'm going to a lot of prenatal care appointments, I get weighed in kilograms. Kilograms don't mean much to me. Spending most of my life in the US, my safety number was always in pounds. I always ascribed certain meaning to that number in pounds. So let's say that I still had this disorder, right? If I were to get weighed in pounds and find out that my weight is a scary number, it would be really scary. If I were to get weighed in kilograms, I wouldn't know what that means unless I, of course, translate it over to pounds, because it's not about the number. The number is arbitrary. The number is meaningless. It's about the meaning that you ascribe to the number. It's never about the actual weight. It's about the way you think about the weight on the scale. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, how can you show concern to someone who has this disorder if not by pointing out that they seem unwell? Try to comment on their emotional well-being and, if possible, their behaviors, not their appearance. So instead of saying, I notice you've lost a lot of weight, or you look unhealthy, you can say, I notice that you seem to be nervous around food these days, or it seems like this diet is taking up a lot of mental space for you, because that's essentially what eating disorders are. They're not about the specific amount of weight loss, they're about the disordered relationship to food. So if you're focusing on the weight specifically, on the appearance, you are falling into the same trap as the person with the disorder. You are ascribing the meaning to the weight instead of to the relationship with food. Something else that can be helpful is modeling a healthy relationship to food anytime you're around them. Eat when you're hungry. Eat what you're hungry for, eat intuitively. When you're choosing what to eat, prioritize health over calories. Eat mindfully at a leisurely pace. Turn eating into an experience to be savored. Stop eating when you're no longer hungry. This blew my mind when I was in the earlier stages of my relationship with my now husband. I was raised with an Eastern European family, so we have this culture of you finish what's on your plate. And that was always really at odds with my disorder, because my disorder would say eat as little as possible, but my upbringing would say finish what's on your plate. So if I finished what was on my plate, I would then end up feeling really guilty because I'd eaten past the point of satiety, and then I would go into restriction. And I remember when I was noticing how my husband would just stop eating when he was no longer hungry, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. It's like, wait, you can do that? And I guess maybe it's a little bit wasteful, but what's the point of forcing yourself if it means deteriorating your relationship with food? And also, just take it as leftovers if you can. It was such a switch from Anytime we would get takeout or make pizza, feeling this pressure to finish my whole half. Rather than now, I eat to the point of satiety. I turn the rest into leftovers and I eat some the next day too. It's no longer just like a cheat meal that I have to then feel guilty for. It's being intuitive with my relationship with food. Something else that's really important to model is absolutely no guilt or shame talk related to food or your body. One of the most harmful things is when you are part of a family where you hear other people speaking really ill of their own bodies. It's really hard not to pick that up. And just generally give this impression that food is, in addition to fuel that we need to survive, it's also a very special life experience. It's one of the beauties in life that's meant to be savored and meant to be enjoyed. So model all these healthy behaviors with food around them, and you might be surprised how far it goes. And also just help them feel more worthy. Treat them with respect and kindness. Don't take away their autonomy or their personal agency by force-feeding them. People tried to do this to me when I was in the throes of my issue. It did not work, and it turned into a power struggle, and it made me rebel against it. Whether or not you agree with it, whether or not people abuse this right, they have the right to do whatever they want with their bodies. The moment you take away that right, you are sending the message that they are not a worthy person. And that is the message that's already feeding their eating disorder. Don't insult them, don't yell at them, don't say things like, you used to have such curves and now you're just a plank. People with these disorders, like I said, have an unconscious death wish. Likely because they've already been made to feel like they don't deserve anything and they're not worthy. The best way to chip away at that belief is to instill this message in them that they are worthy, that you respect them, that they deserve kindness, and they will maybe start to believe that they should also treat themselves with a little bit more respect and kindness. And send the message that they do have value and it is independent of their looks. Now, I'm not super strict on you can never give physical compliments. I think that's a little extreme. But when we're talking about someone with this particular type of disorder, there is very rarely a benefit to commenting on their appearance. And if you're not sure what this person is going through, and if you're not quite convinced that they have an eating disorder or they have something else going on in their life, you haven't actually seen any concerning behaviors that you can point to and say hey, I've observed this, just offer up your open-ended support. Just ask them if they're going through anything. Ask them how they're doing. Extend this open hand for them to take if they want to, if they feel ready. Because you never know, maybe it's not even an eating disorder. If you don't have any evidence that it is, don't assume that it is. All you can really try to do is just be there for them and open that door and hope that they'll meet you halfway. So this is why I think if you guys actually care about Ariana Grande, maybe you should stop commenting on her appearance. Even if you think it's coming from a place of good intentions, I promise you, if she has this disorder, it is making things much, much worse. And these are just some tips for alternative things you can do if somebody in your life you suspect is struggling with this. I will put some extra resources down in the description box if this has been a triggering topic for you and you feel like you needed a little extra support. I hope you guys are having an okay holiday season, and I'll see you soon.